So, Bradley Beal just signed with the Clippers. But just before you click off this video and laugh at the idea of Bradley Beal seemingly going from one big three to another, the Clippers are going to be good. And Bradley Beal's going to be a reason for that. Because before we talk about anything else to do with this Clippers roster, let's get one thing clear. This is not the same as Bradley Beal in Phoenix. And there is one massive reason why: money. Instead of the $50 million that Beal was being paid on Phoenix, alongside the money for Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, which effectively meant the rest of their team had to be scrubs, which it was, Yusuf Nurkic, and just a bunch of misfit role players and young players. Well, now Bradley Beal is only taking up $5 million a year on this Clippers team. That is the same amount as Chris Dunn. So if you think the Clippers could build a good team with Chris Dunn, they can build one with Bradley Beal. And this is why the Clippers are going to be good, because they actually have a team. Instead of three guys who don't really fit and who probably didn't even like each other, the Clippers actually have depth. And let's just talk about Bradley Beal for a second, because at this point in his career, it has gotten to a stage where everyone only talks about his contract. And I am one of those people, and I've criticized him for that, and he was incredibly overpaid and handicapped the Phoenix Suns. All of those things are true. At the same time, I think he's actually underrated as a player. Is it possible to be the most overpaid player and underrated at the same time? I think it is, because whilst he was blamed for pretty much everything, we know the Phoenix Suns weren't exactly the best run organization. They didn't exactly have the best chemistry, and it's not like Bradley Beal single-handedly destroyed that franchise. But outside of the contract, if you remove that, he's not a bad player by any means. In fact, he's actually quite good, because over his 2 years in Phoenix, he averaged 17.5 points, over 4 assists and 4 boards a game on 50, 41, 81 splits. Just to put this into perspective, let's compare Norman Powell's career year last year to the worst year of Brad Beal's career. And as you can see, the numbers aren't that drastically different. If you looked at Bradley Beal as a $5 million contract, he becomes one of the best contracts in the NBA, because that is 10% of what the Suns were paying him, and about 15% of what the Suns are still currently paying him for him to be on a better team in the same conference and for them to beat the Suns probably every time they play. Oh, my Phoenix are an absolute mess. But this video isn't about that. What I am saying is, when you are only paying $5 million, all of a sudden you look at him through an entirely different lens, and now you start to look at him as someone who is still a great three-point shooter, who is still an efficient jump shooter, who can still cut off the ball, who can still play make, who is still a very good scorer on his usage. And we saw him play as the third option. He wasn't exactly getting the most touches in the world, which also reduced his production. At the worst, you were getting a very, very good sixth man off the bench. The plan as of now is to start him by all reports, but at worst, you were getting one of the most productive sixth men you could get, and for a good contract as well. And I think there's also potential for Beal to improve on what he did in Phoenix, because from a fit perspective, it's just entirely different for Beal. I saw this tweet from Bill Simmons, which is funny, about him going from not being happy as the third option alongside KD and Booker to now being a third option alongside James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. But a major problem with Phoenix was they had no point guard. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are incredible players, but they aren't point guards. James Harden, as much as people criticize him, and fair enough for some of it, he is an all-time great playmaker who has consistently elevated his teammates, like Norman Powell, like Ivica Zubac, like Joel Embiid. And I think the fit offensively alongside Beal will work seamlessly, because as I mentioned, he still has those elite off-ball traits as a shooter. Realistically, at worst, the Clippers are getting 80 to 90% of what Norman Powell gave them last year. But instead of just having Norman Powell, they have now used that money to add John Collins and Brook Lopez, with Chris Paul likely to join, and this is the key for the Clippers. I'm not expecting Bradley Beal to be some superstar, and if you're looking at this as a big three, just stop. Ivica Zubac is a better player. He is the big three, let's make that clear. But if you were looking at him as someone who can give you 18 to 20 points a game, either in the starting lineup or off the bench on a very, very friendly contract, then all of a sudden, it looks like a fantastic deal, which it is. It's a fantastic deal for every team not named the Phoenix Suns. And we also have to talk about the fact the Clippers were already really good last year. For the second half of last year, after Kawhi got healthy, they were one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the league, elite on both ends of the floor, going 26-11 with Kawhi last year and winning 50 games on the season. I know, when Kawhi got healthy and now you have another injury-prone player in Bradley Beal, but again, that's the advantage of having depth, because the first year Beal was in Phoenix, the Suns were actually really good with Beal, Booker, and KD on the floor. But unfortunately, when one of those guys, or 2 of those guys, were out, they had no depth. The Clippers, on the other hand, have the backups to replace them if and when they miss games, if we're being honest. Now, if we're going to talk about the problems this team could face, it's not about offense. They have the firepower to be the best offense in the league. How about the defense? Because I know Ivica Zubac is a special defensive player. What he did to Nikola Jokic in the playoffs was the best one-on-one defending any player has done against Nikola Jokic. And it's not just his one-on-one defense against great players. It's his rim protection, it's his rebounding. He moves his feet way better than he gets credit for. He is rightfully so considered an elite defensive center, and just in general, one of the best centers in the league, an all-star level player. Ivica Zubac is special. But outside of Zoo, where is the defense going to come in the starting lineup? And I know what you're about to say, Kawhi Leonard. Yes, but no, because whilst Kawhi is still a good defender and can still be great at times, those times are much rarer now, particularly during the regular season. And more importantly, Kawhi is not going to be the guy you put out there to guard the opposition's best player for 35 minutes a night like he once did. He hasn't done that in 5 years. But it's not all doom and gloom for the Clippers, because they do have the defensive talent. I mean, it's not exactly like Norman Powell was a defensive stopper last year, and they still had one of the best defenses, in large part due to Ivica Zubac, the coaching of Jeff Van Gundy and Ty Lue, and what they have off the bench. Because whilst a lot of people are suggesting John Collins will start, you also have the potential of Derrick Jones Jr. at the 3 and Kawhi Leonard at the 4, with Derrick Jones Jr. being that perimeter stopper that you could place around those guys to have a better balance. Then Chris Dunn off the bench, who we know is elite defensively. Nicholas Batum, Brook Lopez can block some shots off the bench. This is not a team without defensive talent. It'll just be a team that needs to find the right balance. But the ingredients are there. It's just about making it work. Now, if you made it all the way to the end of the video and want to see more content like this, dropping a like on the video would be cool. Subscribing to the channel for more. Thank you for 100k as well.